Okay, so we are back with Talk 16 on Nat Talks About It. I know, I've been gone a long time. I've gotten DMs, text messages. I appreciate the support. A lot of the people that care about what I have to say really saying, hey, where's the talks at? I haven't heard anything. Have you been recording? So a lot has happened since I recorded something last. Dominican Republic made it to the World Baseball Classic. I definitely watched my boys do their thing. They didn't take it home, but they got very far, and they did it for the country. So I was very excited to see that. There were some great games, very entertaining. We're now in the 2026 playoffs, and my Knicks, we're in the first round, and my Knicks they're doing it in the Eastern Conference. I don't want to hear any hate following this video. We are doing it. We're still in there, okay? I don't want to hear about 2 games ago. Let's talk about the last game. It was a good game. So Talk 16 is yet coming from a lot of inspiration from what's going on in my life, what has been going on in my life. And it's really about when you realize that you may not be your type's type, right? So a lot of us often date, talk to people, see people, have situationships, marry people, whatever you want to say, based on our types, right? So we hear this phrase, yeah, but she wasn't my type, or, oh, he's my type. And you wonder, like, what does that mean? Where does that come from? And what I notice when I talk to people is that a lot of times we're confusing our type for a pattern, right? I don't think that your type is necessarily related to the pattern of what you have been involved with, right? I don't think that it's the same thing. So the way that I understand a type, and you can feel free to disagree, and please do and let me know, is that your type is what turns your head. Your type is when you have no information but what you see and what you sense, and you're interested. That's your type, right? Where you don't have time to process, is this convenient for me? Should I do this? Does this make sense? None of that comes through, and there's a sense of curiosity and attraction. That's what my type is to me, right? I can go into a room of many, many people, and the same type of individual always catches my eye all the time. They look similar, they present, right? Their presence in the room reads off in similar ways. So that's my type, right? And it took me a lot of years to really accept that I had a type. A lot of people that I've been close to and that know me really well have always said things, oh, that's just because that's your type. And I'll be like, I don't have a type, right? Because I want to believe that whoever is good for me is what I am going to entertain, or what I am going to kind of feed, right? That's what I want to believe. But that hasn't always been true, right? And now, after all these decades of life, right, I'm finally able to accept that, yeah, I have a type. But recently, something really interesting happened where I was having a conversation with someone that I'm very close to, and she very casually said, well, yeah, you're not his type. And I was like, what? What do you mean I'm not his type? How can I not be his type, right? And it's something very simple, but it's something that I hadn't really assigned to me, because I've never experienced being attracted to somebody that wasn't attracted to me, right? So what do you mean that I'm not his type? I'm everybody's type, so to speak, right? Which I know I'm not, but in my real life, that has never happened, that I liked someone or I was attracted to someone and they could potentially not find me attractive. And, you know, it's interesting because if you listen to what I'm saying, it's almost like my brain said, well, if he's not attracted to you, then you're not attractive, right? And that's not it at all. You can find someone attractive and they not be your preference, right? I have a girlfriend, and she and we often talk about how beautiful is universal, right? You can find an attractive person in many different cultures, in many different countries, in many different ethnicities, many different races, but that may not be your preference. And that leads to the question, that's just not my type. They're a very attractive person, but they're not my type. So, my type, I've discovered, doesn't always align with the values that I have in a relationship or when I want to have intimate relationship with somebody. And that is where having a type gets problematic, because if we are using having a type as information to mean that we should be with this person or we should make it work with this person, that can create conflict, right? Because what we often do when we believe things like that is that we will try to force something or make something work because we're reading too much into this person being my type. So I am in a stage where I've been owning my patterns for a while, right? I've been owning my patterns. And a very close friend of mine, and to protect his innocence, we'll call him JG, right? And when we were talking about types, he said to me, you know, you only go for the men whose type you are because you're lazy, right? You don't want to work for the actual connection. You want the actual connection to have a basis. And initially I was offended by that, right? Because anyone who knows me knows I'm far from lazy in any area of my life, right? But then I started to think, and his feedback was because we were discussing how I am the type of everybody that I've been with, right? That's just what's happened. And he said, well, no, that's not really what's happened. What's happened is that you only allow those people whose type you are because you're lazy. You're relationship lazy. You don't want to work for everything else that comes with the connection. And like I said, I was offended. I was like, wait a minute. And we've been friends for many years, right? And he's seen me through several connections. And I said, well, I don't think that's true, right? I don't think that's true. But then when we got off the phone, I reflected a little further and I said, well, what if that's true? What if I have a sense of security, right, and assurance and safety by being with people, being intimately involved with people who I don't have to work for the attraction, right? Because attraction it has a couple of components, right? The first is I'm attracted to how you look, and that's easy, right? And then, as you know, people become more attractive or less attractive as we get to know them a little better. And I think that's what he was alluding to, right? I don't even want that chance. I don't want to risk that someone might like me less or I might like them less than when we started, right? Because if the baseline is here and we can go here, then how low is that? But if we're already physically attracted to each other because we are each other's types, then we might start here. And I think that there is a sense of security in that. And I don't know if you guys agree. So then the question becomes, is the Is the exchange about connection, right? Is it about being with your type because you feel that connection, that he or she is your type? Or is it about proving yourself? Is it about the, I can kind of quote unquote pull this person, right? I can bag this person, like the kids say. Um, and then let's remember that someone's preference may not be someone's option, right? So what I like may not be available to me. And I've seen that happen too, right? My type is not available to me. And what happens, right? What happens when I'm not my type's type? I think that and going back to the conversation with the person that I was close to about me not being this person's type, I think that if me and this person were to engage in an actual relationship, I think there would be a test to my identity, right? With me understanding that I wasn't his type. Then what are we doing here, right? And how did you get here? If I'm not your type, what brought us to be together? Because you are my type. But what was it on your side? And I feel like that would always come up for me. So as I've been thinking about these topics, these themes, and all this stuff, I realized that I'm not really interested in being with someone whose type I'm not. I don't need that type of questioning, right? Because let's face it, I think that a lot of us underestimate how important it is to be liked back, right? How important it is to have someone who is excited about you in the like stage. We don't have to get to comfort or in love or a lifelong commitment. We all want to be liked for what we show superficially, right? Of course, we want to be liked for what's deep within us as well, but it's very flattering when someone likes you and shows that they like you. And I've said it many times to a lot of people. I kind of value like more than I value love, right? Because love comes from comfort. Love comes from reliability and dependability. But to say that you like someone, that you genuinely enjoy their company, you like being around them, there's so much choice there, right? Where love comes with sacrifice. Love comes with the stuff that comes later. And if I'm honest, right, to be liked to me means that I'm not being tolerated, right? You're here by choice, and being chosen is big, right? Being chosen is huge. And I think we all want that, right? There's a certain kind of peace that comes from not having to wonder if someone is attracted to you or how much someone is attracted to you. And I think that's kind of like the wall that you push down when you are with someone who is your type and whose type you also are. I don't have to wonder about that. And let's face it, like, relationships are hard enough, and I'm discovering now, right, in a lot of the conversations that I have, and a lot of speaking to a lot of my friends, and the current stage of my personal life, that situationships and friends with benefits, all that stuff is already very difficult, right? To have to add for me to try to make this happen with somebody who's not my type or somebody whose type I'm not. It doesn't, I don't see the value in that. I don't see that as worth it, right? So to quote the same person who I was talking to about this topic, when we said, yo, what happens when I'm not my type's type? And she very confidently said, well, then he doesn't become my type, right? If I'm not his type, then he's not my type, right? And that means that I change what I'm into for this person. So I'm not going to chase, I'm not going to pursue, I'm not going to give any energy to someone whose type I know I'm not. And that's what it is. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've been with your type and how it worked out. If you've been with someone who's not your type and how that worked out. Share all your stories and let me know. Let me know if you think that being with somebody that's not your type is worth it. You might change my mind. Okay, let's talk about it. See you next time.